but it always seems to be going live before it actually goes live. Good morning, everybody. This is Val Campbell and Brad Kranz on the Saturday Morning Show. Brad, it's been a couple of weeks since we introduced ourselves. There might be some new people here. Tell us about you.
Well, I'm Brad. I live in the Seattle area, close to CHOP. For those of you that don't know, that's actually a sad part of it. Little political commentary there. Yeah, I'm an entrepreneur, guys. I'm a business owner, and I'm excited to see about where we're going. I'm just going to start out saying this, guys. I know what's happening in the economy. I think you need to prepare yourselves. We've talked about this. I've had some conversations this morning on all this. A lot of people get what's going on, but what I think a lot of people don't get is they don't have a plan. What are you going to do? We're going to talk about your cheese just got moved. What are you going to do? I think you need to be looking for opportunities to solidify and shore up whatever you're doing financially, because we are in a new economy, like it or not. And that's some advice, free, no charge. But I just think we got to pull our head out of the sand, and we need to be paying attention to what's going on. Got to be self-aware. I hope you've got some good mentors and people that understand what's going on. So if you don't tune in, stick with us. Hopefully we can help you out a little bit.
Yeah, we get into a really broad range of subjects. So my name is Val Campbell. I've spent my whole life in the business world. Sometimes I wish I'd really worked on my golf game or something like that, and made a bunch of money hitting little white balls or whatever. But no, I started out in the sciences. As a high school kid, I was working on advanced stream rehabilitations and a lot of scientific stuff. Went to school originally to be a zoologist, a herpetologist, actually, studying reptiles and amphibians. Spent a lot of time with those guys and gals down at the Woodland Park Zoo, which at the time was one of the foremost reptile collections in studies areas, and Frank Slavens and Ernie Wagner and some of those guys down there. And I noticed that the people in the sciences, and that this included, we're in Seattle, so the fisheries industry and oceanography was really big here. But I noticed that all the science people that I knew, they were feeding their families weenie water soup and stuff like that. You couldn't make any money. You practically had to pay to work, to be at the zoo, right? To work there. They didn't pay you. So I thought this really bad. So I shifted over into business. So there's a lot behind that. But as we talk about some of these things, I guess I can say I've got enough of a sciences background to be able to understand some of this stuff, and we've been talking a lot about viruses and weird things recently. So I've actually enjoyed kind of diving back into that part of the world. I do have a technical background. I've been in the construction industry and done a lot of business consulting. And in the construction industry, oddly enough, one of my areas of expertise is managing teams using personal protective equipment in hazmat situations like asbestos and lead contaminated areas, and aerosols like paints and different types of things that are being applied. So anyway, I've got some background in that, and that's kind of fun. But Brad and I tend to talk mostly about business and success and how to take advantage of trends, right, Brad?
Yeah, I'm going to share this. This is on my heart this morning. I was watching Gary Vaynerchuk, and I love watching him because this guy's he understands what's going on. Aside from, he likes to use the F word a lot, but if you block that out, ignore it. The guy's got a lot of wisdom, a lot of compassion and empathy, but he knows what's going on in the digital media world. But he said something this morning that really struck me. He said he could have invested in Uber like twice. He could have made, $300 million on paper, and he didn't. But he said, he doesn't worry about his failures. And I won't tell you exactly what he said, but he doesn't care about his failures. He goes, it's okay to fail as long as you're not so over leveraged that one of those failures puts you over the edge financially. And I said, wow, okay, that's good. So don't have all your money in one pot. If all your money's in one deal and you're wrong on it, you're going to be hurting, but it's okay to fail. And I think that message struck me, Val. It's okay to fail. I don't know about you, but I've failed more in my life than I've had successes. I think we're just getting to the precipice isn't the word. We're getting to where we got everything together business-wise that we're going to see some real success in our business here from September through the end of the year and ongoing. But it's taken a while to get there. And if you're just looking short term, and I'll just be honest with this because I still laugh at this when I picked up my taxes for my CPA last month. One of the things he said, he kind of just goes, "You made $60 last year?" Yeah. Not going to make $60 this year. I'll make 61. But I was reminded and I know what he's doing. He's saying, you're in this deal. You're only making, last year was a learning curve for me, Val, and 6 months of this year. But if you think short term, $60, I should get out of this deal. If you're not looking long term, you're going to miss it. And I think, again, we are at the cusp of real success for what we're doing with some things going on. But if you quit before you get there, or you're thinking short term, you're going to miss out. That's, what do you think? That's just my message. I'm just kind of reminded, short term versus long term thinking. You got to be in this for the long haul, right? If you bogey on one hole in golf, you got 18 more, right?
Well, let me put a little perspective on that for you. American Airlines wishes they'd made $61 last year. This year, right? They wished they made $61. I'm actually kind of going through this discussion with the federal government right now because as a business person, I just let everybody know. I know it's a big shock. As a business person, you have absolutely no incentive to have a lot of taxable income. The objective is to use all of the legal and appropriate tax laws and regulations to reduce your taxable income, and thereby the tax structure is set up. Boy, this is really off what we're going to really talk about today, but it's a good subject.
That's okay.
The tax laws are structured to encourage people to invest and grow businesses. The idea being is that that's going to stimulate the economy. You have more successful businesses. Eventually, the idea is if you do that, you're going to make money, but that might be a long ways down the road for a business. Amazon, I think it took them 14 years before they actually made money, but they were huge by that time. They kept reinvesting all of their money into growth and into infrastructure, into equipment and facilities.
Billions of dollars into capitalization that there was I remember discussion in the mid to late 90s, are they going to really make it? Because they had borrowed billions of dollars of capital to get going. And now you look at them, and the sad thing is too, now people are jealous of successful. Look at all these wealthy companies that are making it. And again, I'm just going to share my attitude and heart. You need to do something about it. Stop being a victim. Stop blaming Amazon. Stop blaming Apple. They just got a $2 trillion market valuation. We got to stop being victims, Val, in our economy, in our country, and start taking action, guys. I'm just going to say, I'm going to get on this. I hope I make you mad. Get off your butts and start focusing on taking action to do something. Stop being a victim. Okay.
And Brad, a part of that message, and I'm going to use another analogy. Part of that message is, don't get mad at the hurricane when it comes to town. You live in a place where your hurricanes happen. Don't get mad at the economy or the employer or the government or whatever when that shift comes and knocks you down. The shift is coming. It always comes. If anything, I fault a lot of our education system for not teaching people as they're growing up how the deal works and what the game is. They don't. So they're surprised. They get out there and they find out that the shift happens, and they're left standing there with nothing in their pockets. And I fault that.
Got moved. And Gary Vaynerchuk said this morning. He was talking to people and he said, you know, as an entrepreneur, I can't blame anybody else. You can't blame anybody else. But I think in the quote business, the work world, we've shifted our blame to the government, the economy, you know, my boss and this. And I got to say, stop it. You got to look in the mirror. What are you doing to change your situation? We have to start taking personal responsibility.
Well, and you know, and the other piece of that is people say, but I'm not an entrepreneur. I just have a job. I'm an employee. Now, here's a concept here. And again, I go back to the education system. And I'm just going to be really blunt. I'm sorry if you're a teacher. That's an honorable profession, but they're teaching the wrong things. And that's not the fault of the teacher. That's the fault of the education system. Now, emphasis on the word system.
Yeah.
Because they're taught to go to school, get a good job. That's how you make it in America. And what they're not taught is the fact that is not how the economy works. That's not how finances work. If you are an employee, you are an entrepreneur. You just have one product that you're selling to one company. Every egg is in one basket. That's what an employee is. It doesn't mean that you're not in business. You are just in business serving one customer. And if that one customer, with your one product being your time, if something gets disrupted with that one customer, you can't blame the world. Maybe you can go back and say, gee, they didn't teach me that. But, you know, as an adult, we all need to step up and realize that government bailouts don't happen forever.
No, and I think some of them, and the big message I keep getting and that I'm understanding more and more is self-awareness. You got to know who you are. Now, I'll just say, Val, in all fairness, not everybody can be an entrepreneur. I get that. Okay. And you can call entrepreneur employee. I would just say they're an employee, but self-aware, you've got to be aware of what's going on around you instead of thinking, hey, everything's supposed to work for me. This is supposed to be right. Hey man, nothing in my life has gone right, if I'm bluntly honest. Okay. That's how life rolls. That's how the ball rolls. And you can be mad about it. And you can say, woe is me, or you can say, okay, that is life. And I don't want to be just cut and dried hard, but that's kind of what you're saying, Val, is we got to realize the playing field isn't necessarily equal, but you got to make some shifts so you can take the most advantage of what is available. We still have the best economy in the world and we are the land of opportunity, but I think people have forgotten that.
And even overseas, I mean, you know, we talk sometimes about the United States, and there are some advantages here. We have more options, really, than other countries, but those options come at a price also. And I fear that, you know, when people think, for instance, well, the government's going to, you know, do a stimulus, or the government's going to do something. The government can't give you anything they don't take from you first. And they can borrow from the future, but all they are doing is giving you the ability to borrow money because the government can do that. The government's like a bank, right? They just say, hey, we're going to borrow a whole bunch of money from your future and give it to you now. You don't even get to vote on that. No. And they oblige you to be responsible for that interest. So that's a really deep subject, and we've been talking a lot about this because of the whole virus situation, right? I'm trying to make a little bit of a turn here because Brad and I talked about opening up the show for a couple of weeks and talking about an option, a fact of life on how to deal with the coronavirus, how to successfully deal with this in a way that the government and all the media and everybody's not talking about. And it's really disgusting to me. It's reprehensible. that the only thing they're talking about is vaccines, masks, social distancing, and vaccines, none of which are really appropriate. They are not an appropriate application to this particular situation. None of them. And people think that I'm outrageous when they say that.
No.
But I just have shared a lot of stuff on social media, literally studies in hospitals that prove again and again and again. I think I posted an article with about 20 studies in it that prove that masks don't even work in surgery. They've done studies and found out that the infection rates in patients in surgery actually is the same or goes down if the doctors aren't wearing masks. Things like this. So there's a lot of stuff out there, but we'd like to talk about health because both Brad and I have a really intense personal experience. We're going to go ahead and open up and be candid with people. Intense personal experiences with our health, and we want to share the things we learned about being healthy. Right, Brad? Is that
okay?
Agreement? So, Brad, why don't you go ahead and kind of start with your story, if you will, and let people know what you've learned about being healthy, because being healthy is the best way to combat illness. I mean, doesn't that make sense?
Yes, and I'm going to get there, but from what you said, given this COVID situation that we're in, and I still be one, how long does this quote flu really go on? Unfortunately, probably till at least election here in the U.S.
Sad. It's going to be remarkable. It's going to be remarkable
but it's like I've never seen a flu season, and then we're going to be into the new flu season. So that brings up other questions, which we don't have time to get onto. But Val, part of my thought on this, because I have a chiropractor, I've worked with a clinical nutritionist, I've worked with a naturopath, etc. And my chiropractor keeps saying if your immune system is built up, you're okay. Your body can build. But guess what? And I'm just sidetracking a little bit. The government, everything coming from the government is about fear, and more fear. But I have heard not one suggestion from government or media on how to get your body healthy. We should be thinking about this. I mean, that's a question nobody's asking. It's like there's this the proverbial elephant in the room. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Excuse me. Can I ask a question? How come we're not talking about how to get our body optimally healthy so I can deal with this quote pandemic that's a load? I'm just going to say it's a load of crap, guys. It's not a pandemic. I'm going to leave it there. How do we get our bodies healthy? Okay, so here's my short story on this. Again, if your immune system is built up, your body should be able to fend off and ward off illnesses, and that's what my chiropractor is indelibly or well trained in. Keep optimizing your body health, because he just laughs at this. But I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. It's actually stage 4 prostate cancer. Thank B, it's not spreading, thank goodness. But what I was forced to confront, and I did a lot of reading. I probably read 5 or 6 different books on them. I'm not going to pull them out. We're not going to go through those. You'd be here till at least noon. Is how important the right diet is. Number one, just to keep healthy as a normal American. But if you have cancer, there are certain things, and I found out that sugar feeds cancer, the cancer cell, just like you'd say heroin feeds a heroin addict. Well, if you want to get heroin addict off of heroin, you don't, sorry, Sally Bagshaw, you don't buy them heroin. It doesn't work. But if you have cancerous cells in your body, which I do, they're down the prostate and they're outside, they've metastasized to some of the lymph nodes, you need to watch your sugar intake, number one. And that's a big deal, because so much of the foods we eat convert to sugar ultimately. If you're eating carbohydrates, potatoes, guess what? Yeah, it's carbohydrates, but those carbohydrates turn into glucose, which is a sugar. And again, sugar feeds cancer. So I really had to look at, and I started working with a naturopath, getting on a anti-inflammatory diet, so my cells weren't being inflamed. And again, a lot of the foods we eat And I'll go over just, I'm going to probably share some stuff more, a whole food approach to it, because I think we're not here to dispense medical advice or necessarily diet recommendations, but I will say our American diet is terrible. How most people eat is terrible. And we wonder why we're sick. And when I started looking at and this is kind of funny now, at the changes I needed to make in my diet to minimize the effects of, and I wasn't eating a lot of processed foods, but primarily sugar. I thought, I'm not going to die of cancer. I'm going to die of starvation. Because it was like, whoa. And now you start reading labels and almost everything has sugar in it. So it's like, okay, how much, the less is more. Our diet in America is overloaded with sugar. We're probably taking in, I don't recall the exact number, like 8 times the amount of sugar that we should be on a daily basis. And that sugar's doing something in your body. Okay. And that's not good. I'll just say that. So that's in short of it. I'll get into some specifics here, but I was forced to radically alter my diet to be more conscious of what I was eating, to start looking at labels, particularly for sugar. But as my clinical nutritionist, he's a board certified clinical nutritionist, he said, if your thumb can't, I'll just take this ball. If your thumb can't cover the ingredients on something, then it's probably not good. And you know what? He's, for the most part, right. If your thumb can't hide all the ingredients, there's probably a lot of stuff in there that you shouldn't be eating that's processed. And there's some decent sugars, but there's a lot of alcohol sugars. There's sugars in almost every food we eat. Even that's why I've never been a big milk fan. Sorry, I drank it as a kid, but I probably haven't drank milk for 35, 40 years. Just not a big, but milk, lactose. A lot of people are, probably 65% of Americans are lactose intolerant. Lactose converts to sugar in your body. Voila. Probably didn't know that. But one of my daughters, and even I think my wife, Joni, has some issues with dairy, which most people don't. But guess what? We have a high dairy diet, milk, cheese, all this stuff. And again, lactose, it turns in, it's a sugar. And your body is being fed that. So there's a lot of foods that aren't doing our bodies any good. So my message, and I'll turn it over to you for a minute, Val, is just we need to be aware of what we're eating. I thought I was doing a pretty good job, and I was, but in retrospect, I really wasn't. Specifically for a condition like cancer, it's all, and I'm just going to say this, it's almost shameful because my oncologist did not understand. And I'm glad to have an oncologist. Medical doctors are wonderful, but I really think you need to work with a naturopath or somebody that understands the interaction, whole body health. Because my oncologist did not understand half the supplements I was taking. He was wondering why I was thinking I'm spending hundreds or thousands of dollars on this. And he asked me, why are you taking all this? I said, to keep my body healthy. And what I didn't say, because I didn't want to sound like a jerk, is because you're going to be trying to feed me some poison that's going to hurt my body. I need to get my body in an optimal condition. That's what I was faced with is, do I go on chemo? I ended up doing radiation, not maybe as severe as chemo, but radiation, guess what, can cause cancer. The cure they're giving you can help cause cancer. So you really need to look at what you're being fed. But most oncologists for cancer, and they're not taught, Val, you're saying what we're taught in school. Well, medical school, they're not taught about nutrition or how to optimize your body. Most oncologists will tell their patients, you can eat whatever you want. You want to gain weight. I'm just going to say personally, from what I've read and what I've studied, that is some of the worst, and I will say some of the most irresponsible advice you can give. A cancer patient sucking down Starbucks Frappuccinos, eating cookies, ice cream, and all that, you're not helping your body out. And this goes into is cancer genetically based, which I'm very skeptical of, or is it a metabolic? There's a great deal of evidence supporting a metabolic approach to cancer, that it's based on our diet, lack of or overstimulation by foods. And this whole process has been overlooked and supplanted over the last 100 years by, guess what? Big Pharma. Now, instead of eating right, which has been proven for well over 100 years to have positive effects, Now you can take a pill.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? From the medications I'm on for my cancer, that I'm glad I have them, but I have hypertension and I have depression issues because of the medications. And I have weight gain too, based on the medicines. Hopefully I'll be getting off of some here, but every medicine you take, which is a processed product, guys, it's not natural, will have side effects. And now I'm having to counter the side effects of my medication to deal with the cancer. But that's where, again, I'm going to get back to it. Diet is so important. How do you optimize the health of your body? You do it by eating good food, real food, not fake, McDonald's Big Macs that are like 90% chemical or whatever it is. So that's kind of my quick story, guys. But I'd say don't wait till you get cancer to check your diet out. We can optimize our health. And again, we can go back to the COVID thing. Nobody's talking about how to optimize your health to deal with this. And that's shameful. The information is there. The resources are there, but we're not being told. We're not being informed. But again, it comes back to personal responsibility. You've got to take some responsibility to understand and know this stuff. So, Val, take it away.
Absolutely. So I've told my story before, somewhat similar to Brad's. My dad died when he was 54. He had some bad habits. He smoked primarily, and he didn't really ever get any exercise. But still, at the age of 54, and I can remember being with my dad in a situation where he had a boat and we were on the boat and he was using a hacksaw to cut a bolt. And this was a bolt the size of your finger. It just took minutes. And he was so winded and so exhausted by the time he cut that bolt. And I remember I was about, 16, 17 years old. And I remember looking at him going, wow, that's pretty bad, And then at the age of 45, I started having some symptoms similar to that. Don't smoke, had a much healthier lifestyle in many ways, but I was experiencing this exhaustion. It was just horrible. I couldn't even walk up and down stairs without resting. It just got so bad. I remember I was at a job site one time. I was in the construction business. I walked down a driveway to a project down on the water that we were building, and I walked back up. And I was exhausted, and so I started going to the doctors. I went to 3 medical. In the course of a couple of years, I kept shifting because the doctors didn't seem to have any solutions for me. You'd go in there, and what they'd do is they'd take your blood pressure and they'd weigh you, and then they'd go to a chart and they'd go like this, and they go, oh, these are the drugs we're giving out this week. And the side effects from the drugs I hated worse than what I was experiencing from whatever was bothering me.
Yeah.
And so eventually, the third doctor clinic that I went to one in Bellevue, I went to one in Redmond, then I went back to a different one in Bellevue. This guy was an internist, and he really was quite brilliant. He was really great. And I was pouring through, I was getting international health and wellness magazines, the fitness industry. And I had these things sticky taped and underlined, and I was going through, I said, there's got to be an answer in this day and age for this. I'm 45, 46, 47 years old. By this time, there's got to be an answer. And I took these magazines, a big stack of them, probably about this thick, into this guy, and I'm asking him questions in this. And after a couple of minutes, he says, whoa, wait a minute. He says, I got to tell you a couple of things. The doctors don't know anything about that. And this guy's an internist that lectures at a local university. I said, what do you mean? He said, doctors don't know anything really about that stuff you're talking about, health and wellness stuff. Doctors are really schooled and licensed by the government to diagnose illness and treat it with drugs and surgery. That's what doctors do.
Yep.
And he told me, he said, doctors are regulated by the insurance industry. We can only prescribe the treatments that are in the list and the drugs that are in the list given to us by the insurance industry. And he said, doctors don't really know a lot about nutrition and health and wellness. and further, he said, if they do, they're not, unless they're licensed in that area, they're not even licensed, and their insurance doesn't even cover them talking to you about that. So they don't want to get into health and wellness. They just want to, take your vital statistics and then look and see if you got sickness and how they can treat it. And they manage you to a standard. The standard is determined by the insurance industry to allow the insurance industry to make money. So the doctors are really patient managers for the insurance industry. And you can imagine my shock of I've never heard any of this in my life. I'm sitting in a doctor's office, and this board certified internist lectures at the medical school, local university, is telling me these things. He says, in fact, I've got a class action lawsuit going against the big insurance company right now because they fined me $5,000 because I prescribed a treatment for a patient that was the right thing for the patient, but it wasn't what they wanted me to prescribe. So they fined me $5,000. And I thought, how can this be? And coincidentally to that, at that same time, I was cleaning some things in my house one Saturday morning downstairs, and I had a radio on, and I heard one of these radio shows by a local doctor, an MD, who had opted out of the medical industry, the insurance side, the standardized medicine, and he had a clinic that focused on optimizing people's health instead of managing them to a standard. And everything he was describing to me on the radio was what I was experiencing, what I was going through. I mean, the symptoms, everything. And he gave these free seminars, and I went to one. It was on a Saturday morning, and I went and sat and listened to him. And there's something really critically important that I want to share here, but I'm telling this story as a lead-in so that people understand this. I went up and talked to him afterwards, and I said, how can you know all of this? It's exactly what I'm going through. He said, because men go through this, especially men, women to some degree, but go through this, regularly, but doctors don't either know how to treat it or they're not allowed to treat it. It's very easy. What you're talking about, I can fix easy. I said, easy? I've been to 3 of these clinics. He said, yeah, but they either don't know or they're not allowed to actually treat it. So the bottom line of this was I did some simple blood tests, found out that my testosterone and my thyroid were very low because of something called andropause. Now, I've even had nurses where I talk to nurses about andropause, and they look at me like, huh? I don't know what andropause is. And I find this remarkable because if you ask anybody what menopause is, they understand. Oh, menopause, yeah, that's that thing that women go through as they age. Well, men have andropause. It's the same situation. It's the natural aging process where your hormone levels decline, and your hormone levels are what govern a lot of your health. Mm-hmm. And yet we are not taught. There is no focus. There's no kind of knowledge about what's going to happen to men over the age of 40. And he just looked and said, oh yeah, we can supplement those with biologically identical hormones and with some thyroid supplement. And boom, within 6 months, I'm riding up mountain passes on a bicycle team in Canada. And so I went from not being able to walk up and down stairs without resting for 20 minutes to being on a bicycle team, riding up and down mountain passes. And that was the start of my journey of really discovering the value of focusing on health and wellness instead of standardized medicine. And so I kind of made a little bit of a list here of some thoughts that I have, and it starts with habits. If you want to know how to stay healthy, now, first off, disease happens. We are biological organisms. Disease can happen, right? Yep. You can be Lance Armstrong. You can be the the healthiest, most supplemented. Some people criticize just how supplemented the guy was, but he had cancer because of a trauma. And I had a trauma from cycling. I understand that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Any cyclist understand? Go ahead. You're going to say something?
Well, yeah, I in 2018, I didn't list as one of my goals to get prostate cancer. It wasn't on my, hey, let's shoot for this. Let's find out what and go through it. Stuff happens, life happens, disease happens, and I'll say, Val, and it's how you deal with it.
Well, right. And the healthier you are, the more successful you're likely to be able to deal with this. And just in the COVID situation, you take a look at who's really at risk. Now, I know there's outliers. They say, well, gee, I knew a guy that was 40 years old and he was so healthy and he got COVID and died. Okay. Well, there probably was some underlying thing. There had to be some reason, because the preponderance of the evidence is that healthy people, 99.8% of the people that contract this or that are out there don't die from this. But there are segments of the population, as you mentioned, specifically related to the strength of their immune system. Older people have weaker immune systems, and people who have cancer and people have, they're already sick, their immune systems are compromised by the battle they're fighting.
Right. I'm going to say this real quick again, and Val, we can get sharing. I have a few things I'd like to share, just some general tips. But again, optimizing health. Okay, I'm going to advocate. Yeah, if you've got a medical condition, or thank God the surgery I had a surgeon. I didn't have somebody that watched a YouTube video on it and it's like, hey, I think I can do this. I think you need to have a balance between medical doctors to take care of medical issues, but naturopathic and or clinical nutritionists, however you want to lay that out, to deal with the health side. Because again, what we're seeing with this COVID situation is all, quote, medical stuff, and there's a divergence of opinions, and I think a lot of it's a load of crap because they're government doctors and they're following CDC, WHO, which I don't listen to. But there's nothing on the naturopathic, or I'll just call it whole health or optimized health situation. Again, that's the voice we're missing in this, is how do you optimize your health so you don't get COVID? Don't go be afraid, hide in a closet, put a mask on, and stay 100 feet away from people. And I'm over exaggerating for a reason. How do you optimize your health so you're not scared to go out in public? I'm still amazed when I go out and I'm walking on the sidewalk and somebody goes away and they got to either get out in the street or like, yeah, I'm this walking blob of COVID virus that somehow I'm going to walk by and boom, it's going to grab you and you're going to get it. People are absolutely paranoid out there, and it's completely irrational. I just go, wow. So balance, Val.
It is really true. And one of the things, if you're listening to our broadcast here, and if you're wanting to know truth and reason, let me just share something with you. Much of what we accept in the world is not done by design and with intent. And I'm going to give you this great example. I was just commenting earlier that one of the arguments that people have out there in social media, which is a place where people talk today, is that, well, of course masks work. Doctors and nurses wear them all the time in surgery, so they must work. Well, how did that get started? What's the science? What are the studies behind that? Many, 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 many years ago, some doctor came up with the idea, oh, gee, if I cover my mouth and do this and that, it's going to help these patients not get infected. And they did this as part of many different things that they were doing. And then it got picked up and somebody says, oh, that's what we should be doing. They started teaching this in medical schools, and it's just accepted that this is what you do if you're a doctor, and it becomes part of the prevention of liability. It doesn't have to do with science. It has to do with accepted standards and prevention of liability. They can't sue you and have you be liable for that. but they've actually done studies, and I published about 20 of them in an article today, literally studies in hospitals where they took teams of surgeons and said, okay, you guys aren't going to wear masks in surgery for 6 months. And then we're going to check and see what are the correlations in terms of infections. And what they found in all of these studies is that the masks didn't have anything to do with infections. They don't have anything to do with transmitting bacteria and viruses. And in some cases, they actually had less patient infections on the teams that didn't wear masks in these two comparative studies. And there have been many of these studies. This isn't like a one-off. There have been many of these studies where they've looked at this to the point where in some of these hospitals and situations now globally, they're telling you don't have to wear masks. In fact, it probably does more harm than good to you and the surrounding environment. But yet it is just accepted because it's just what you do. It's just the practice. And so I want to direct back here a little bit to habits. My father had some bad habits. I think a lot of our health starts with habits. And some of what we're talking about here, and I'm going to roll down through this quick so then you can come back and share. But obviously, if you drink to excess, if you smoke, if you take, drugs and stuff like that, probably not healthy. Your body's not designed for that. It's going to have a toll on you eventually, okay? So I want to talk about some specific things real quick here. First off, one of the things that I learned, and I'm going to speak for Brad because Brad talks about it all the time, that we've learned is that you need to have a team. You got to have a team. You got to have your coaches. And my team that I like is chiropractor, acupuncturist, a doctor that has a background in naturopathy. Now, I happen to have a doctor that's both an MD and a naturopath. So I can kind of work both sides of that a little bit, okay? And it's great to have some coaches, like a trainer and a massage therapist, some things like that, because if you're out there and you're active, sometimes you got some strains, you got some issues, and you need somebody to help you design a workout program or something like that. This becomes your team of coaches to keep you healthy, okay? So then the next thing that I want to share with you is the importance of your gut. And most people don't know that about 80% or so of your immune system happens in your stomach and your intestines. It's the bacteria and the culture that gets built in there that affects your entire being.
Yep.
And so focus on making sure you're eating food products that build up your immune system, not deplete it. Mm-hmm. The second thing I want to share is exercise. Now, you don't have to be Olympic decathlete or something like that, but you've got to do some exercise to breathe, to clear your lungs, to keep your lung capacity up. You know that one of the biggest problems that elderly people face is they literally lose their lung capacity. They sit so much, they never actually exchange the air that's in the bottom of their lungs. It just sits there and putrefies. You've got to exchange that air, stretch your lungs, and being on a stationary bike or treadmills or ellipticals or whatever it is,
whatever, get out there.
Get your body moving for 30 minutes a day. Build this into your habits. I'm going to tell you, I'm really bad at this. I love my cycling, but as I've gotten a little bit older, I've had some issues. I've had some injuries with hands and things that make my outdoor cycling more difficult. And I tend to just sit and work all the time. I just get absorbed in what I'm doing. We've got a lot of exciting things going on. But again, I've had to rebuild my habits. Vitamins, supplements are so important. And anybody who's telling you that supplements don't matter, I'm telling you that is an ignorant person. Do not listen to them. No, because the foods you ate, first off, many of our farmlands, and I used to be an organic farmer, one of the many things I've done, we spent as much time building up the soil as we did growing the vegetables. And I can tell you that much of our farmland are depleted in specific nutrients, and much of our fruit and vegetables are picked green, they are not fully ripened. They don't have the full complement of all of the nutrients that your body can use to optimize. The other thing is that you don't have access because of the places you live. Let's say you live in Washington State. It's a northern climate. You don't naturally have access to all of the most optimal fruits and vegetables and nutrients in the world. So a really good supplement system helps with that.
Big time.
The next thing that I want to mention, and I'm almost done here, and I want to turn this back over to Brett, is vitamin D. We increasingly are living in an indoor world. And you can look at populations of people and you can say, why do Latinos not have many of these diseases that non-Latino cultures do? This is just an example. Their weight is body mass indexes are higher often. They tend to eat diets that, have quite a few carbs and things like that. And yet they don't experience historically a lot of the diseases and things that non-Latino cultures do. Well, first off, just as a group, they tend to work outside more. They get a lot more vitamin D. They tend to be more active in their work historically. Okay. They also don't smoke as much as a culture. They don't smoke as much as other cultures do. And so even though they may have some negatives, quote unquote, the positives overwhelm so much. And a big piece of this is vitamin D. In especially the more northern you get, the vitamin D levels that we have are horribly insufficient. Mm-hmm. And so in the summertime, I'm suggesting people habits. I carve out 20 minutes a day and I take my shirt off and I wear a pair of shorts and I go outside in the summertime and I sit in the sun 20 minutes a day. And I don't wear sunscreen because I don't want the chemicals of the sunscreen in my bloodstream. Okay. I'm not going to stand out there and roast on the beach for 5 hours. That's not what I'm doing. I'm building up vitamin D and I'm conditioning my skin. And then in the wintertime, I supplement heavily with vitamin D3. And you can go online and do research and figure out the appropriate levels. I don't need a whole bottle every time. In fact, I use drops of vitamin D3.
About that. Okay.
yeah, my drug abuse. Yeah. I'm that guy that never smoked it and never, inhaled or anything. I literally have never. My joke is when I was dating was I'm a half a beer guy looking for a beer and a half girl. So I'm like the least drug guy, the most, health conscious guy without being a totally freak. I wish I was more. But my point being is I use vitamin D3 drops. They assimilate easier. A lot of times certain vitamins that you take in pills go into your stomach and they never get into your bloodstream. So there are some of these that are better to take, but go online, do some studying, work with a nutritionalist, get some of this information, go take some blood tests. And if you're over the age of 40 and you're a guy, especially, but a gal too, but I'm a guy, so I'm speak from that experience. You need to be focusing on measuring your hormone levels because as those start to drop, which they will do eventually, different people are different rates, you are going to start experiencing avoidable health problems. All you need to do is to take, have some your doctor give you a prescription for compounded biological identical hormones, not the drug hormone, which is a mask, but biological identical hormones. And there's different ways that you can take those. And that's the key. All right. And so those are my points. Brad, I'm going to turn it back over to you. Share some of yours, please.
Well, I'm gonna go back. So our company, our business, we have some awesome health related products. So reach out to us there, and they've worked really well with my situation, which is why I was excited about them. But there's a lot of good products out there. You want to get high quality products. Yes, I take liquid vitamin D like Val, but I'm going to say, just to preface this, make sure you go in and have a physical. Okay, I avoided these for years because I didn't want to go and see the doctor because I didn't want they're going to find something wrong like cancer. So I can say that with a smile on my face now, but go see your doctor regularly, get a checkup. But if you can, go work with either a naturopathic doctor or a clinical nutritionist so they can help assess, blood tests, but assess your diet. Okay. You can see this is clinical nutritionist. Water, 28 ounces of water, quarter tablespoon of Himalayan pink salt for hydration. Now that sounds counterintuitive, but water, most of us don't drink enough. You need to drink enough water. You need to hydrate properly. So I'm going to say start out with water. And the other thing, just some general advice, a whole food diet's going to go a long way toward it. Again, if you can work with a naturopath or a clinical nutritionist to dial it in for you, eating real food, that's huge, guys. Eat meat, seafood, eggs, vegetables, fruit, natural fats, herbs, spices, and seasonings. Okay, those are okay. Eat foods with simple or recognizable list of ingredients or no ingredients at all because they're whole and unprocessed. Stay away from processed foods. And I have been able to find, I'm not supposed to eat so much carbohydrates, but I've found a potato chip that is just potatoes, olive oil or avocado oil, and Himalayan salt. Now for potato chip, and it's hard to find those. But if you're going to eat potato chip, again, 3 ingredients. I can cover those with my thumb. But you got to look, you got to be specific. All the other, you want to stay away from the processed oils, the cottonseed oil, canola oil, vegetable oil, your body can't process those very well. So you want to stay away from the artificial oils. Olive oil, avocado oil are fine, but don't consume added sugar, real or artificial. I'll say probably one of the biggest culprits we have, stay away from carbonated sugar drinks, soda pop, whatever you want to call it, soda pop, whatever. That stuff is absolutely junk for your body. Don't drink it. Even if it says diet, that's even worse because of the chemicals. But, you got to maybe watch your maple syrup. And I'm just giving you some general stuff, agave, nectar, coconut sugar. You won't really want to watch your sugar intake, but watch for the added sugars. Most products are chock full. You get some of these like Red Bull Exit energy drink, maxed out on carbohydrates and sugar. That is a terrible product for your body. Stay away from stuff like that. And I'll say moderate use. My naturopath told me you can do things in moderation. She goes, if you're 80% on this diet, you're okay. But, watch your consumption of alcohol or even with cooking. I like to use a little bit of cooking sherry with some grilled halibut we're going to do tonight for the sauce, but watch it out. No tobacco products either. Don't eat grains. Again, check with the nutrition, but these grains convert to carbohydrates, and which convert to sugar, but you want to minimize your input of grains. And then they recommend not eating most forms of legumes, black beans, red kidney beans, garbanzo. That I have to admit, I'm a little bit guilty with stuff there, but again, not heavy on this stuff. Don't eat dairy. Again, about 65% of Americans are lactose intolerant. I'm not missing anything, but cow, sheep, or goat's milk, cream cheese, yogurt, sour cream, ice cream. And guess what's in ice cream? Lots and lots of sugar, frozen yogurt even. So these are things to just be aware of in your diet. And don't consume carrageenan, MSG, or sulfites. If these ingredients appear on any label form, watch out. Again, stay away from the highly processed foods, and that's going to be most fast food too. And then don't consume baked goods, junk foods. That's huge in the American diet, or treats with approved ingredients. It's just all the junk foods, the cinnamon rolls, bread. Bread is, I eat very little, if any, bread, because again, that's grains turns into glucose, which is a sugar. It's also inflammatory. It creates inflammation. But most of it is just, I'd say my biggest bottom line would be stay away from the junk food. Don't go to McDonald's. Don't buy candy. Don't eat the candy bars. Don't eat, potato chips or Cheetos, whatever. I know they're good. Doritos. They taste great, but that is a processed food. It's not good for your body. So again, really you won't go wrong if you stay with a whole food diet. I will recommend, this book came out years ago just as a resource, Whole 30. There's actually some really good recipes in there too, which is cool. You got to find what works for you. But again, Val, it's habits. We've been trained as Americans. Look at the commercials, all about candies and McDonald's and Burger King and all these other things, which, yeah, they taste good. Pizza. You know, you can go to Costco and I can get a cauliflower crust pizza, which again, because it's cauliflower, natural, I can eat that. And we put some pepperoni on it and that, but I don't add anything else. It does have a little bit of cheese. Okay, see, I can cheat a little bit, but I'm not going to Domino's or Pizza Hut or Papa John's. I have to stay away from that stuff. Now, I know in America that's like sacrilege or heresy, but to start eating right, you have to plan, and we plan our meals. Guess what? I'll just say for tonight, we're having, Val, and I wish you guys could come over. I had to take out a second mortgage to do this, but fresh Alaskan halibut, I'm going to grill. Asparagus, it's going to be with olive oil, some garlic, and lemon juice, fresh squeezed lemon. Salad, and I'm going to do some shrimp. Okay. Not going to pile the cheese on. It's not going to be cooked in a milk or cream sauce, but just real whole food. And it's a planned diet. We do a lot of turkey burgers. I have found beef with my new griddle, the ground chuck, where it makes some really good burgers, but I don't put cheese on mine. I don't heavily season my burgers. Now, I have to admit, I do cheat a little bit. I do have some ketchup and I have some fries occasionally, but I'm not eating. That's not my lunch. I go to McDonald's or Jack in the Box and get an ultimate cheeseburger with fries for lunch. I don't do that. So you have to plan. But eat whole carrot sticks, celery sticks for snacks. Just some ideas.
Yep. Well, we do a lot the same. Like you say, we have a couple of places we like and a couple of things we like, and we use those as cheat treats, right?
Yep.
In fact, we went to Arby's last night. They got a $6 deal going, and we got some euros. And but it's not what we do all the time. You know, we eat mostly. We go to the store and our basket is full of fruits and vegetables and chicken and things like that. And along that line, I got to share with you something else that I have learned. People a lot of times really focus on fruit. They really like fruit. They eat a lot of fruit. Okay. Now, your body's not typically designed to eat a lot of fruit. Our bodies are because fruits are acidic. Our bodies are designed to eat vegetables more. Now, and because of the sugars also. Now, I just want to share that people can think about how a human would tend to eat in the wild. And what does that diet look like? It's a diet of a variety of things.
Yep.
But in most places, fruits are only available in season, in the late summer. During the summer months. And when those fruits, and in the fall, when they're really eating a lot of fruit, what are they doing in nature? They're packing on weight like a bear for the winter, right? Yeah. They're eating berries. They're eating all that stuff they can because they're trying to put on weight in nature to go through the winter. Well, we don't have that issue. We don't have to worry about putting on weight. We worry more about eating too much and having to take off weight. So, limit your amount of fruits versus vegetables. Learn to eat more vegetables.
Really high glycemic, and this is what my clinical nutritionist. I love pineapple, really do, but it's got a lot of sugar. So I've got to eating maybe Granny Smith apples, not as much sugar. Blueberries, raspberries, those are pretty good. Strawberries, because there's not as much sugar. Pears, Bartlett pears are coming in season. I love them. Those are good because one, there's fiber in it, and it's lower in sugar. Cantaloupe, pretty good too, but I stay away from the real sugary fruits. But the other thing to avoid is these fruit juice drinks, guys, because they're chock full of sugar, packed with sugar, and there's no fiber in it. That's why you're better to eat fruity, sugary fruit because there's fiber in it. That helps mitigate the sugar. But if you're just drinking, so I'd say avoid pineapple juice, orange juice, apple juice, all those guys, because they're too much sugar for your body. So Val, yeah, you're good message there. Yeah.
And I readily admit my name's Val and I'm a carbaholic. I mean, I love donuts and stuff like that, and ice cream. Oh Lord, I literally, if I get out of control, like I was last summer, I literally will go buy one of those big tubs of ice cream. And Ems doesn't really eat that stuff much, and like a week later, it's gone. I mean, literally, I'm eating one of those big. You know what I'm talking about? Those big 2-gallon tubs. Man, I'm eating one of those things every week because I love ice cream. I love that stuff. I used to love in the evening to eat a big bowl of cereal before I go to bed. It's like the worst thing you can do nutritionally. So yeah, I know what we're dealing with here, but I've changed my habits to a large degree, and I'm constantly working on that. And so what do I do when I go to the store right now? I buy dates and cashews. Those are my snack. If I want something
nuts
sweet,
good. Peanuts, but yeah, cashews, dates, that nuts are good for you.
Yeah, if I got a little what we call a sweet tooth, if I'm feeling like I want something, I'll go eat 3 or 4 dates. They're really sugary. It's probably not something you can do a lot of, Brad, but like I said,
moderation, but better than having a bag of gummy bears or Sour Patch, which they're awesome, but those are not good.
No, right. So there are, I'm just saying, if you study it and think about it, there are some natural things that you can do. So there are options that you can do to kind of help your body cheat a little bit. And that's kind of how I got to the point where I trick myself is I focus and my meals, I tend to eat a big meal in the morning, and then I try and not last night being an exception, and I way overdid it. Like I'm not good on portion control, never have been, but I try and eat my bigger meal in the morning and not maybe have a salad in the evening. And it can be I tend to eat pretty big salads, but again, if you were to take a great big salad and boil that down and cook that down, you'd find out that it was about that much. There's not a lot of substance there. So again, salads help fill you up. Salads with peppers and a lot of
things too, because again, most all dressings that go maybe a balsamic or even just lemon juice and olive oil or something. Most salad dressings have sugar. They have like canola or sunflower oil, which is a processed oil. Not good for you. Now, I do cheat a little bit, but I don't put a lot of dressing on mine. But just be aware, again, in most salad dressings, they are processed. And one of the biggest no-no ingredients is going to be the oil they use, sunflower or canola or something, which, again, you should avoid if you can. But
and again, dressing, and I admit I'm a ranch dressing fan. I love ranch dressing, but they're not all created equal. And if you read through some of them, you go, oh, wait a minute, this one's got a lot more natural ingredients and a lot better ingredients than that other one.
Do buy the better quality ingredient one if you can. And then moderation. It's ranch dressing on everything. I pour my omelet in the morning, I put ranch dressing on it. My potato, I soak it with ranch dressing. I douse my salad with it. Just moderation. But again,
I can remember growing up, my kids had put ranch dressing on pizza. They put ranch dressing on everything. They love it.
It's just, but you have to spend extra time. You have to do your due diligence and shop for ingredients. We look at labels on stuff. And Joni, I'll be looking at something going, hey, what do you think? Those sugar grams. Probiotics, there's some good stuff. PCC has a kombucha. If you don't like kombucha, there's some good ones. Not all of them are created equal. Some of the ones in the stores are junk because there's too much sugar. PCC has a kombucha. Actually, I think it's Puget Sound Kombucha Company. It's got 4 grams of sugar in it, which is super low. That's pretty good. 6 grams, not bad, but 4, that's a good drink. That probiotic drink, kombucha, is actually really good for you too.
And Jeunesse has some great products. They've really done a lot of work on staying on the leading edge. There are good products and good companies out there. Of course, we're partial because we picked one because of not only the quality of the products, but the comp plan and everything else. But so this is a subject that is going to be a focus of our attention for a couple of weeks. My dear friend Shelley Renault is going to join us next weekend. She is
awesome.
a health and wellness expert. She operates a health and wellness clinic in Mystic, Connecticut.
Wow.
And she's my lifelong friend, my bestie. Fell in love with her when I was 17. She was 15, and I've loved her ever since. She's just an awesome person. I'm super excited to have her join us and share with us her views and her thoughts on alternative medicines, because her clinic is all alternative medicine stuff. Really
fantastic, guys. Tune in, because that's going to be great, guys. This is the side of the story that we're not getting, that I can say as I guess a guy that's dealing, I'm not a cancer survivor, but I'm having to deal with it. Pay attention, because this information is going to be valuable. We're not charging for it. It's free. So take the time, join us, because I know you're going to learn a lot from this for sure. I am too. I'm excited about it. Okay, guys, have a great week. We're excited. There's a lot of fun stuff going on, and stay tuned. All right. See you, Val.
Bye.